The stench hit them first. Not just the sight. 20,000 rotting corpses don't merely assault the eyes, they overwhelm every sense. Even the battle-hardened soldiers of the Ottoman Empire began vomiting where they stood, and among them, riding grimly toward the capital of Wallachia, was Sultan Mehmed II, the very man who had conquered Constantinople. He expected a city braced for siege. Instead, he found something far more disturbing, something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Before him rose a forest of death, but not of trees of people. Human bodies impaled on stakes, some long dead, some still twitching. And at the center of this grisly display, on the tallest stake of all, sat one of his own, Hamza Pasha, a decorated Ottoman general, his body draped in ceremonial robes, his face frozen in a rictus of agony. In the next few minutes, you're going to uncover the shocking truth about the real Dracula, not the vampire of myth, but a man so cruel, so diabolically inventive in his torture, that even the most ruthless conquerors fled in terror. And the most chilling part, this isn't fiction, this is historical fact. This was a man who discovered that, with precision, the human body can survive on a stake for 3 full days, and soon, you'll learn exactly how he learned that and why. The birth of a monster. Winter 1431, Siasowara, Transylvania. In a small stone house marked by the sigil of a dragon, a woman screams in labor. The child born that night will make the world scream far worse. They name him Vlad, after his father. But history will know him by another name, Vlad the Impaler. His father, Vlad II Dracula, was a member of the Order of the Dragon, a Christian military order sworn to defend Europe against Ottoman expansion. Dracula means dragon. His son, Dracula, son of the dragon. But his terror-inducing name wouldn't come from dragons or legends. It came from his signature method of execution. To understand why this child would one day make 20,000 men die on spikes, we need to go back to the moment he stopped being a child. Childhood in chains. The world Vlad was born into was one of collapse. The Ottoman Empire spread westward like wildfire. Ancient Christian kingdoms fell. Even mighty Constantinople was on the verge of destruction. Between east and west lay Wallachia, a rugged principality caught in the storm. Here, young Vlad would learn his first and most important lesson. Power comes from fear and fear comes from pain. In 1442, Sultan Murad II summoned Vlad's father to a diplomatic meeting, but it was a trap. Vlad Dracula was forced to make an impossible choice. Hand over his son's 11-year-old, Vlad, and 7-year-old Rodu as hostages, or watch them die. He chose power over parenthood. Vlad watched his father ride away. It was the last moment of his childhood. The Ottoman court claimed noble hostages were well treated. Radu, beautiful and gentle, adapted quickly. He converted to Islam, embraced Ottoman culture, and became the Sultan's favorite. But Vlad did not bend. He refused to learn the Quran. He assaulted tutors who insulted Christianity. He spat in defiance, and for that he was punished. Forged by tortured Ottomans didn't simply beat him, they broke him down. Falaka soles of his feet whipped until they split, bastinado hung upside down and struck with sticks. Isolation, starvation, humiliation, but the most significant lesson wasn't taught, it was shown. Vlad, still a boy, was forced to watch impalements, public executions designed for maximum agony. He saw prisoners hoisted onto blunt stakes, not sharp. The stake pierced the body slowly, carefully, avoiding vital organs, keeping the victim alive for days. He watched, he studied, he learned the angle of entry, the way the body rides, the science of suffering. A throne paid in blood. Back in Wallachia, chaos erupted. His father, trying to play both sides, was killed in an ambush. His older brother Mircea suffered worse, blinded with hot irons and buried alive by the Wallachian nobility. When the news reached Vlad, now 16, he asked only one question: how long did my brother take to die? Years of torment hadn't broken him, they had created him. The Ottomans realized this. In 1448, they released Vlad with a small force to reclaim his father's throne. His first reign lasted just 2 months. But even then, his cruelty was already evident. A merchant accused of theft, Vlad had his feet skinned and salt rubbed into the wounds. That was only the beginning. The rise of the Impaler. For the next 8 years, Vlad served in various armies, including under John Hunyadi, the very man who helped kill his father. Because for Vlad, revenge could wait, knowledge could not. He mastered warfare, fortifications, cavalry tactics, and psychological terror. Then, with Hungarian support, he returned to claim his throne. He met his rival Vladislav II in single combat. According to legend, Vlad didn't just kill him, he beheaded him slowly, sawing through the neck while he still breathed. Then came Easter Sunday, 1457. Vlad invited the Wallachian boyards, the noble families who betrayed his father, to a grand feast. They arrived in lavish robes, expecting peace. Wine flowed, music played. Then Vlad stood and asked, "How many princes have you served?" Some said 5, others 20, a few 30. Each answer was a confession. He gave the signal. Soldiers burst in. The elderly and infirm were impaled on the spot. The young and strong were marched north in their finery, forced to rebuild Panari Castle stone by stone. When they collapsed, they too were impaled. This was not cruelty for pleasure. This was a message. Betrayal has a price. And this was just the beginning. I discovered documents that show what happened next, shocked even medieval standards of cruelty. But first, if you're finding these hidden historical horrors as disturbing as I did, hit that subscribe button. I uncover the dark truths about the story every week, and trust me, Vlad's story gets so much worse now. Let me tell you about the incident that gave him his infamous nickname 1459. Brasov. This Saxon merchant city has been harboring Vlad's enemies and rivals. To the throne, Vlad sends a warning. The city ignores it, so Vlad brings 20,000 soldiers and shows them what happens when you ignore the dragon. He doesn't just attack the city, he transforms it into a gallery of horror. Becerra Niagara. The Black Church gets its name from the fires Vlad sets, but fire is merciful compared to what else it does. Men, women, children, all let in. Neat rose babies impaled on the same stake as their mothers, positioned at the breast as if nursing pregnant women with driven through their wombs. Bothers, the part that separates Vlad from ordinary tyrants. He has a table set up in the middle of this forest of dying humans. Servants bring him a full meal: roasted meat, fresh bread, wine. Vlad sits and eats while surrounded by thousands of people in various stages of dying, the moaning, the screaming, the begging. It's dinner music to him. One of his boys can't handle it. The man covers his nose against the stench of blood and evacuated bowels. Vlad notices. Does it stink too? You, he asks pleasantly. Thea Boyer admits it does. Vlad has him impaled on a stake twice as high as Theothos. You'll be above the smell up there, he explains. Medieval chronocercicid. Something else about this meal, something so disturbing that must skip over it. According to both German and Russian sources, Vlad dips his bread in the blood pooling beneath the stakes. He develops a taste for it. Blood-soaked bread becomes his preferred meal during mass execution. Numbers alone are staggering. Estimates put Vlad's death toll at 40,000. Others say 80,000, but in a principality with only 500,000 people, he may have killed 20% of his own population. That's proportionally more than Stalin or Pol Pot. But unlike those dictators, Vlad didn't delegate. Hypercentrally supervised, he innovated USI. Basic impalement wasn't enough for Vlad. He developed variation: stakes through the mouth for liars, through their skull for thieves, driven in slowly with hammers, so the victim lived longer. Women were committed adultery, had stakes driven through their vaginas emerging through their mouths. He impaled people upside down, sideways, in patterns that spelled out messages to things happen that pushed Vlad from cruel ruler to complete monster. First, he remarries. His first wife's name is lost to history, but when he had to secure his succession, seconded Ottoman Sultan Mehmed to demand tribute, not just gold. 500 boys for the Janissary Corps' children to be converted to Islam and trained as soldiers. Vlad, he sends the Sultan a message: come and get them yourself. When Ottoman envoys arrive to collect the tribute, they refuse to remove their turbans in Vlad's presence, citing religious custom. Vlad congratulates them on their devotion. Then he has their to their skulls with 3 iron spikes. They're sent back to Constantinople, still alive, still wearing their holy headgear. Now permanently attached, the Sultan sends an army led by Hamza Pasha. Vlad ambushes them at night, capturing thousands. Every single is impaled, but for Hamza Pasha, Vlad prepares something special. The general is castrated first, his genitals stuffed in his mouth, then he's impaled on a gold-covered stake, because even in torture rank must be respected. This brings us to 1462 and the event that would cement Vlad's reputation forever. Sultan Mehmed II, called the Conqueror, after taking Constantinople, Annales leads an army of 150,000 men into Wallachia. Some sources say 300,000. Vlad's maybe 30,000, including old men and boys. He can't win a direct battle, so he doesn't fight directly. As the Ottoman army advances, they find a wasteland. Vlad has burned every field, poisoned every well, evacuated every village. The Turks marched through ash and silence. But that's not the worst part. Vlad sends diseased prostitutes into the Ottoman camps. Men infected with plague infiltrate their ranks. The mighty Ottoman army begins dying before any battle starts. June 17, 1462. The night attack. With a small force of his best cavalry, Vlad infiltrates the Ottoman camp under cover of darkness. The goal is Sonnet Mehmed in his tent and end invasion with one stroke. Vlad personally leads the charge, cutting through guards searching for the Sultan's pavilion, but in the darkness and chaos, they hit the wrong tent instead of Mehmed. They find the Grand Vizier. The assassination fails. Vlad and his men barely escape as the entire Ottoman camp mobilizes. Next day, Mehmed continues to Watervish, Vlad's capital. The gates are open, no defenders on the walls. The Sultan suspects a trap. Advance carefully, then they see it. Wait before I describe the most horrific scene in military history. You need to understand scale. For miles around the city, covering 7 acres, stand wooden stakes, 20 of them, and on each stake a human being in various stages of death and decay. Men, women, children. Turks captured in previous battles. Bulgarian Muslim Jews supported the Ottomans. Wacky and traitors. Some have been dead for weeks, their bodies black with rot, crows picking at exposed flesh. Others impaled more recently, still movely, still moaning. Geometry is deliberate. The stakes are arranged in concentric circles. Lakia grotesque garden. The tallest stakes in the center hold the highest ranking victim. Hamza Pasha's gold stake glints in the middle, his body long dead but still wearing ceremonial armor. The smell makes hardened soldiers vomit. The sight makes them weep. These are men who've conquered cities, who've seen Byzantium constantly fall. But this ice-spine warfare, this is madness given form. The Sultan, Mehmed the Conqueror, the Mon who ended the 1,000-year Byzantine Empire, looks at this forest of the dead and speaks the words that will echo through history. I cannot take the land off. A man who does such things, what can one do against such a demon? Turns his army around. The man who never retreated retreats. But here's the truly disturbing part. Vlad considers his masterpiece, while Mehmed flees. Vlad walks among the stakes like anarchist in his gallery. He adjusts pedestal have slipped. He notes which angles of impalement lasts longest. This isn't just psychological warfare, this is pleasure. One captured Turkish chronic leaf admitted from sanitized Asturias chords that Vlad would visit the impalement fields at night alone. He would sit among the dying and listen to their moans like music. He would touch stakes to feel the vibrations of struggling bodies. He would bring winning toast to dying. This is who Vlad was. Not a patriot defending Christianity, not a harsh but necessary realer, but a man who found joy in human suffering extended to its absolute limit. Ottomans leave, but they leave behind Vlad's brother Radu with troops. Remember beautiful Radu, the one who thrived in Ottoman captivity. He offers Waki and Sekoy, support him and live in peace, or stick with the impaling madman. It's not a hard choice. Vlad's own nobles abandon him. His army melts away by August 1462. He's fleeing to Hungary seeking help from King Matthias Corvinus, but Matthias has been in communication with the Ottomans. When Vlad arrives, he's arrested and imprisoned for 12 years. Herets in Hungarian captivity, but even in prison the sickness remains. Guards report finding dead rats carefully on splinters in Vlad's cells. More birds skewered on sharpened quills. Creates miniature impalement fields with insects pinned to pieces of wood. When asked why, he simply says he doesn't want to lose his skill. Think about that, 12 years in a cell, and his primary concern is maintaining his technique for torturing living things. The guards are so disturbed they stop bringing him anything that could be sharp and polished. Shift Hungary needs a lease against the Ottomans again. Vlad is released, even given a Hungarian noble bride. He converts to Catholicism, a political move, and receives troops to reclaim Wallachia. His third reign begins in 1476. He's older now, in his 40s, but the cruelty hasn't aged. If anything, big imprisonment has fermented it into something worse. The impalements resume immediately, but now he adds psychological torture. He forces family to watch each other being impaled in order, children first, then mothers, then fathers. He develops a method of impaling, keeps victims alive for up to a week. One story from this period is so grotesque that even contemporary writers hesitated to record it. A group of Turkish prisoners are brought before Vlad. He has them impaled in a specific pattern. Shorter stakes in front, taller behind, creating an amphitheater. Agony in the center. He has a pregnant woman impaled vertically as she dissolved hours. She gives birth on the stake. Baby, of course, dies immediately. Vlad watches the entire process, taking notes on how long each stage takes. This is not warfare. It is not even madness. This is civil so pure it defies comprehension. Cur 1476. Vlad is marching with Asmal force when he's ambushed by Ottoman troops. The details vary. Some say he was assassinated by his own men, tired of serving a monster. Others say that Turks overwhelmed him. What we know is this: Vlad the Impaler dies in battle. His head severed from his body. The Turks take his head to Constantinople, where Sultan Mehmed II has it displayed on a stake above the city gates. There's poetry in that the Impaler finally, if only in death. His body is supposedly buried at Snagov Monastery, but when archaeologists opened his supposed tomb in 1931, they found it empty. Some say monks, horrified by burying such evil, moved the body. Others whispered darker theories, but Vlad's death doesn't end his story. You might think I'm about to talk about Bram Stoker and vampire legends. I'm not bogus. The real horror of Vlad's legacy ain't fiction, it's fact. In Romania today, Vlad is considered a national hero. Yes, you heard that correctly. The man who murdered 80 people holding on blood-soaked bread while watching children die on stakes, who impaled babies to their mothers' breasts. This man has statues. His face is on tourist merchandise. Roman unitionists praise him as a defender of Christianity, a bull work against Islamist invasion. They focus on his resistance to Ottomans and ignore the screaming forests of the dead. They celebrate his harsh justice he supposedly made, while Ikiaso safe that a golden cup could be left at a public fountain without Beinstellen. They don't mention that safety came from terror so absolute that people were afraid to breathe wrong. This is their horror. Not that monsters exist, but that we rehabilitate them, that we find ways to excuse the inexcusable. Because that monster was on our side. Vlad didn't impale 20 Turks because he was defending Christianity. He impaled them because he enjoyed it. He impaled Christians too. He impaled anyone who gave him an excuse, and when he ran out of excuses, he made them up. Medieval railers were brutal by necessity, but Vlad brutal by choice, by preference, by pleasure. Other rulers of his time used execution as a tool. Vlad used it as entertainment. Other rulers killed enemies. Vlad killed randomly. Merchants who looked at him wrong. Women who cooked meals. He didn't like children who cried too loud. He once impaled a group of foreign ambassadors for being too well dressed, saying their finery insulted wacky and simplicity. The German talus speak of Vlad encountering a peasant with a torn shirt. He asks if the man has a wife. Yes, the peasant says. Vlad is the wife impaled for not proper liking for her husband's clothing than her gives. The man a new wife with a warning, keep your husband better dressed. Join your predecessor. This was a justice. This was a man so damaged by childhood trauma, so twisted by years of watching Ottoman cruelty that he became worse than his tormentors. The Ottoman simpled enemies. Vlad impaled everyone. The Ottomans used torture for information punishment. Vlad used it for pleasure. Modern psychologists historical records classify Vlad as a sadistic psychopath with probable sexual dysfunction. Many of his specific impalement methods targeted sexual organs. They not his childhood trauma, his forced observation of torturous powerlessness as a hostage. Classic serial killer development, except this serial killer had an army and a country. But perhaps the most chilling detail comes from those who knew him. Personality describe a man who was culture indolent, even charming when he chose. Spoke multiple languages, wrote poetry, understood theology and philosophy. Huant, a mindless brute. He was worse, a brilliant mind that chose to use its gifts for creating the most exquisite tutoring possible. Russian chroniclers describe foreign merchants visiting Vlad's court. He treats them well, shows them hospitality, then, as they're leaving, mentions casually that he had their servants impaled while they dined. Justos see if they'd notice. They didn't. Hellos, and lets them discover their way out. This is what true evil looks like. Not raving madness, but calm, calculated cruelty delivered with a smile. In his final letter, written days before his death, Vlad complains that his Hungarian allies don't let him impale as freely as he'd like. Even facing a massive Ottoman invasion, his main concern is that he can't torture enough people. That's who Vlad really was, a man so addicted to human suffering that limiting his torture quota was worse than military defeat. When that Turkish sword finally took his head, it wasn't killing a defender of Christendom, it was exterminating a rabid animal that happened to wear a crown. There, Dracula didn't fear crosses or sunlight. He didn't drain blood with fangs. He did something worse. He proved with enough childhood trauma and unchecked power, a human being can become more monstrous than any myth. He showed us that the worst horrors don't come from supernatural creatures, but from damaged humans given the opportunity to spread their damage. 20. Corpse hurting on stakes, babies dying on their mother's breasts, children forced torch, parents impaled in order, pregnant women giving birth while dying on palace. This isn't legend, this isn't exaggeration, this is history recorded by multiple sources from multiple nations or painting the same picture of evil incarnate. Here's the final, most disturbing truth about Vlad the Impaler. He won history. Tactics worked. The Ottoman chesed to invade Wallachia 4 years after his death. His name became a cursed head. Turkish mothers used to frighten children. Behave or Kazakh voyevoda will get you. The Impaler prince, a man so terrible that even conquering armies turned back rather than face what he might do. And somewhere in that blood-soaked ground of Wallachia, in the earth that absorbed the bodily fluids of 80,000 impaled victims, something dark took root. Not vampirism. Reality doesn't need supernatural imbalanced, but the idea that ultimate recruity equals ultimate power, that fear is stronger than any army, that a single twisted individual can make empires retreat through sheer willingness to dow het. Others won't. Vlad the Impaler didn't just kill people, he killed the idea that humans have limits to their cruelty. He proved that within our trauma and power anyone can become advil, and he proved that sometimes devils win the forest of corpses. Outside Dedegov wasn't just a war crime, it was a mission statement. It said, this is what a human being is capable of, this is what I am capable of, and I enjoy it. Mehmed Conqueror, who had seen cities burn and empires fall, looked at that forest and saw something that conquering couldn't fix, something that winning couldn't cure. He saw the face of human evil, stripped of all pretense, all justification, all humanity. And he ran westward. All run from men like Vlad. But instead, we put their faces on coins and call them heroes. We focus on their victories and ignore their victims. We pretend their ends justified their means. They didn't. They never do. And until we're making heroes of monsters, will keep creating more Vlads, more forests oft impaled, more proof that the real Dracula doesn't need fangs, just power and a damaged soul. Vlad 3 died in winter 1476, his head decorating a Turkish spike, but his legacy that humans can surpass any fictional monster, and cruelty that lives forever. Every dictator who uses terror, every killer woe finds pleasure in pain, every damaged child who grows up to damage others. All children of Vlad the Impaler, the man who made hell on earth and called it justice. If Vlad's level of sadistic cruelty shocked you, wait until you discover what Gilda did to hundreds of children in his castle. Murders so horrific they make Vlad look merciful. Subscribe for more truths, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.